Welcome back. In this passage, we will cover questions 19 through 25. And I'll share a secret with you. I recorded this whole thing with the microphone off. So this is the second time I'm having to go through this one. But that's okay. The important thing is that we get the answers to you and we will be finished with this book. Okay, this passage is called Christmas Morning. Rachel looked around the tiny, dingy apartment she shared with Andrew. There was one small window in the room that served as their bedroom and living room. She eyed her piano in the corner, the one her favorite grandmother had left to her. She remembered singing with her grandmother as a child. She wished she could learn to play, but living in the city was so expensive that they could not spare the money for piano lessons. Rachel and Andrew had been married for only a year. Sometimes he seemed like a ghost husband. He was currently at a conference out of town and had been working late hours at the office. They really only got to spend quality time together on the weekends. He had been talking all year about how nice it would be to have a home office so he could work at home instead of staying late at the office. Rachel had decided what she would get Andrew for Christmas. She called the music store, and a few hours later, a driver handed her $500 cash as two men carried her piano down the staircase. She shed barely a tear as they drove away. Instead, she bought a can of paint and paintbrushes and ordered a small desk and some shelves. There wasn't a moment to waste. Andrew would be coming home from his conference in 2 days, on Christmas morning. Rachel awoke early on Christmas morning to admire the carefully stacked books on the shelves over the desk. An hour later, Andrew opened the door. "Merry Christmas, He stopped talking, his mouth agape. He stared at the desk. "Where's your piano?" he cried. "I sold it, honey," Rachel said, kissing him on the cheek. "It's too big for this place. I made you an office so you can work at home. Merry Christmas." "But you loved that piano," he said, "and you wanted to learn to play." "I know," she said, "but I love you more, and I want you home." She spotted a book tucked under Andrew's arm. "What's that?" she said. "I made a deal with the music school to do some of their accounting on the weekends," he said, handing her the book, "in exchange for private piano lessons for you. This is the beginner piano book you'll need." Private piano lessons, she thought, crestfallen. She took the piano book from him and smiled. He had traded his free time on weekends for her. His thoughtfulness touched her deeply. She put the book on his desk, wrapped her arms around her beloved husband, and kissed him. "I would still love to learn how to play. Come," she said, putting on her coat. "Let's go for a walk." "Thank you for the office," he grinned as the young couple walked out into the cool morning air together, holding hands. Their sacrifices may have appeared reckless to some, but any long-married couple would know that this loving pair were truly wise. Read the sentences. Their sacrifices may have appeared reckless to some, but any long-married couple would know that this loving pair were truly wise. Which word has the opposite meaning of the underlined word? The underlined word is reckless. The opposite of reckless is actually in those sentences or in that sentence. It's wise. A key is the word but. because that tells me that this is one thing, but this is the other. It's the opposite. The opposite of reckless is wise. My choices are long married, couple, loving, or wise. So 19 is D. Number 20. Read the sentence. Sometimes he seemed like a ghost husband. Why does the writer use this simile? And remember, similes use like and as. There's the word like. The writer wants to show that Andrew is not real. The writer wants to hint that Andrew had recently died. The writer wants to point out that Andrew scares Rachel, or the writer wants to emphasize that Andrew is barely around. That's the one. He was working away from home. That's why he wanted an office. So number 20 is D. Number 21. Who is the narrator of this passage? We can rule out first person narration because there is no use of the word I, me, my. So the narration is not first person, so I can eliminate those two. The third person narrator is not a character in the story, but mostly reveals what Rachel thinks and feels. Or the third person narrator is not a character in the story, but knows what both characters think and feel. I think the better answer is A. We're mostly, and that's the key word, mostly, seeing this story from Rachel's point of view, not so much from Andrew's. There are a few things about Andrew that we get a glimpse into how he's thinking, but mostly it's about what Rachel thinks and feels. So number 21 is A. 22. Read the sentence. He had been talking all year about how nice it would be to have a home office so he could work at home instead of staying late at the office. Why is this detail important to the story? It shows why Rachel loves her piano. It tells why Andrew decides to take a weekend job. It tells why Rachel and Andrew buy each other presents. Or it explains why Rachel sells her piano and buys a desk and shelves. That's the one. Rachel sold her piano so she could buy the desk and shelves, and Andrew could work from home. Let me just go through these individually. This one's a little bit tricky, maybe for some. It shows why Rachel loves her piano. Has nothing to do with the piano at all. That is the story about her grandmother, and that's nothing to do with our sentence up there. It tells why Andrew decides to take a weekend job. That's really not true because Andrew didn't want to work at the office all the time. He's probably not going to want to work a weekend job either. His point was it would be nice to have a home office so he could stay at home. It tells why Rachel and Andrew buy each other presents. The reason they did that was that it was Christmas time. So that really does not relate to the sentence. Number 23. Read the sentences. Merry Christmas, Ray. He stopped talking, his mouth agape. He stared at the desk. Where's your piano? He cried. What inference can you make based on these details, or what can you figure out? Andrew knew what Rachel had planned to do. No, because he was surprised. He had no idea she was going to sell the piano. Andrew was surprised that the piano was gone. I like that one. Andrew thought Rachel had bought him a new piano. Andrew didn't want a piano. Andrew believed he had entered the wrong apartment. No, because he was telling her Merry Christmas, so he could not have been in the wrong apartment. Answer to number 23 is B. Number 24. What is the theme of Christmas morning? The best gifts are made by hand. Love and sacrifice are the wisest gifts. Christmas is a time to spend with family. Do not give gifts to people you do not know. Well, this story was all about love and sacrifice and the wisdom of love and sacrifice. What evidence supports the answer to part A? In other words, which of these back up the claim that love and sacrifice are the wisest gifts? Rachel looked around the tiny, dingy apartment she shared with Andrew. Rachel and Andrew had been married for only a year. Private piano lessons, she thought, crestfallen. He'd traded his free time on weekends for her. His thoughtfulness touched her deeply. There's the love and sacrifice. He was willing to work weekends to give Rachel something that she really wanted. And finally, number 25. What is the best summary of this story? Remember, summaries have to be exactly, perfectly just right. Not too big, not too small, but just right. One Christmas, Rachel sells her piano to make a home office so her husband can be home more. Andrew takes a weekend job so Rachel can take private piano lessons. Despite the mix-up, they appreciate the gifts. That one sounds pretty good. Rachel sells her grandmother's piano for $500 so that she can buy a desk and shelves. She makes an office in her tiny apartment for her husband. She wants him to use it so that he can be home more often. All of that's true, but there's no mention of his gift. It doesn't say anything about the gift that Andrew got for Rachel. A young woman sells her piano and makes an office. A husband takes a weekend job. They go for a walk. Well, that's the sequence of the story, the chronology, but this is not a summary because it doesn't tell why they did those things. And that was the point of the story. Remember, the theme was love and sacrifice. So we need that theme to be expressed in our summary. A young married couple do not have much extra money. Rachel has a piano but cannot afford lessons. Andrew works long hours and is not at home much. Well, that tells me the problem. It describes the problem that the two were having, but it doesn't talk about the solution. It doesn't tell me what they did to solve the problem. So the best choice is going to be A. This one tells me what Rachel did. It tells me what Andrew did. And it tells me why. That's a good summary. Okay, remember, if you got 20 questions right on this test or more, you have mastered this course. If you did not get 20 right, that's okay. I would encourage you to check in with your teacher, let your teacher see your test scores, and see which lessons you might need to review, if any. If you have questions on any of this material, your teacher will be happy to help you with those things. I hope you've enjoyed this course. I have definitely enjoyed doing the course with you, and I wish you the best of luck in your educational pursuits. I hope you have a really, really good day, and I'll say goodbye.